Welcome to Untested Builds, where we make fictional character builds for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Subscribe for a new build every Wednesday, comment below to suggest your favorite characters, and join the Patreon to vote on upcoming builds and download character sheets, link in the description. Today we're getting back on the hype train with my take on an imposter from Among Us. In case you haven't been on social media for the past month, Among Us is a multiplayer game that takes place on a spaceship operated by a crew. Each crewmate is given tasks to perform to maintain the ship, and the game is over once all tasks have been completed. Where it gets interesting, however, is that some number of the crewmates are actually aliens in disguise, and their goal is to kill all of the crewmates. The imposters are able to disable ship functions and distract the crew, and the crewmates are able to call meetings to vote any passenger off who they suspect might be an imposter. The game came out a couple years ago, but has recently seen huge success with streamers and mobile gamers alike. If you haven't had a chance to give it a try, I highly recommend playing with some friends. Let's start by going over the goals we have for this build. First things first, we gotta get onto the ship undetected and seamlessly blend into the crew. There's not a whole lot of backstory to set up the game, but seeing as how the crew doesn't notice that we're now an extra passenger on the ship, we're gonna have to assume there's some deception at work here. Second, we're here to kill, and we need to do it as efficiently as possible. Wouldn't want to be caught in the act and reported by a crewmate. That means inflicting as much damage in a short amount of time as possible on an unsuspecting target. Lastly, we have to be able to play the part of helpless crewmate when we need to. Knowing when to take the lead during a meeting and having knowledge of the ship's functions are what separates a successful imposter from an airlocked one. We don't really know what race the crewmates are, we just know that they're canonically 3.5 feet tall on average and that the imposters are aliens from their perspective. The cute little jelly beans look like halflings to me, and I love my headcanon that the little guys are just racing away from their atrocious treatment on Galarian at faster than light speeds. We'll take a hit to strength for boost to dexterity and wisdom, as well as a free boost we'll take in charisma. But we aren't really a halfling, are we? Changelings gain access to an array of feats in addition to their father's ancestry. They also get low light vision right off the bat. We can spin this as one of the halfling crewmates got sent back out for a task alone for whatever reason, but came back not quite themselves. We do have some knowledge from our host body, however. The Tinker background gives us more dexterity and charisma. We also get training in crafting and the lore engineering skill and the alchemical crafting feat for free, meaning we can craft multiple alchemical items and immediately add 4 common first level formulas to our formula book. Mutagens are probably the most in-character options. Quicksilver mutagen can help you skulk around the ship and hit on those drive-bys. Chug a silver tongue mutagen on your way to an emergency meeting to make you a smoother talker for a little bit. For our ancestry feat, we're taking halfling weapon familiarity to gain access to probably the best weapon we could have hoped for a build like this. Now, the Filcher's Fork may not seem like much with only a d4 damage die, but it has a whole array of features we're going to be taking full advantage of. But the most important is that this is a finesse weapon, meaning we're using our dex to hit on this, which is basically a requirement since halflings get a strength flaw. It also has agile, so if by some miracle our target survives our first strike, we reduce the penalty we would normally take for making multiple attacks in a round. And if push comes to shove, you can even throw this bad boy too. Since we're here to be sneaky, crafty, and lethal, Rogue is our best bet for eliminating all those pesky crewmates. We'll choose the Thief Racket to add our dexterity modifier as flat damage on our strikes instead of strength. So naturally, we'll take our ability boost in dexterity. Sneak attack is the main reason we're here. We want that big damage after all. Anytime we successfully strike an enemy that is flat-footed to us, we deal an additional 1d6 of precision damage provided we are making a ranged attack or striking with an agile or finesse weapon like our Filcher's Fork. Surprise attack makes enemies who haven't yet acted by our first turn in combat flat-footed to us provided we rolled either stealth or deception for initiative. The Charming Liar feat improves our relation with the target by a step when we critically succeed on a lie during a conversation. For our class feat, Tumble Behind makes a target flat-footed during the turn we successfully tumble through their space. For skills, we'll pick up training in acrobatics, athletics, deception, diplomacy, intimidation, medicine, nature, and survival. For ability scores, we'll increase strength, dexterity, intelligence, and charisma. At second level, we'll take our skill increase in diplomacy and take the group impression feat. Now we can make an impression on up to 4 crewmates instead of 1, and as our proficiency increases, we'll eventually be able to make a good impression on the entire crew. But while our demeanor improves, our attacks get deadly. The Assassin Dedication allows us to spend 3 actions to mark a target for death, meaning we now get a +2 bonus to perception checks that seek that target, as well as deception checks to feint against them. Now normally, this would also give any attacks we make against the target with agile or finesse weapons, deadly d6 and backstabber traits as well. Deadly gives us extra damage on critical hits, while backstabber gives us extra flat damage to flat-footed targets, but our Filcher's Fork already has both of these traits. So with this, we instead increase the die of our deadly damage from d6 to a d8 instead. Level 3 rogues get deny advantage, meaning we aren't flat-footed to enemies our level or lower who are hidden, undetected, or flanking. We also use our skill increase for expert deception. We'll take the quick squeeze feat for better venting. With this, we can squeeze at 5 feet per round, but eventually we'll be able to squeeze at our full speed. The only way the crew can retaliate is by throwing us out the airlock, so I'm assuming we're not that easy to kill. The Die Hard feat means we now die at dying 5 rather than dying 4. At level 4, we'll become an expert in stealth. We can call upon the memories of the crewmates we're imposing as, but we can't always separate the real memories from fantasy. The dubious knowledge feat gives us a bit of true knowledge along with some erroneous knowledge when we fail on a recall knowledge check. Expert Backstabber increases the damage from the Backstabber trait from 1 to 2. Level 5 rogues gain weapon tricks, giving us expert proficiency on simple weapons and critical specialization on crit against flat-footed enemies. So now, in addition to dealing deadly damage on crits, our fork will give the target enfeebled 1 for 1 round. We'll use our skill increase for expert thievery and skill training and performance. Quick disguise allows us to set up a disguise in half the usual amount of time. We'll gain some traits from our true ancestry with Mist Child. Now, when we are concealed or hidden, we increase the DC of the flat check to target us from 6 or 12 respectively. For ability boost, we'll increase dexterity, constitution, intelligence, and charisma. At level 6, we'll take our skill increase in acrobatics for better tumbling. Glad Hand allows us to immediately make an impression on a person using diplomacy rather than needing to converse for a minute beforehand. We do take a -5 penalty for this, but if we fail or critically fail, we can try again after a minute of conversation. We can already disable the various devices around the ship simply by benefit of our thievery training, but the sabotage feat lets us take this a step further by allowing us to damage items that are held by crewmates. On a successful thievery check against a target's reflex DC, we can deal damage equal to twice our thievery proficiency bonus and 4 times that amount if we critically succeed. Level 7 rogues gain evasion, increasing our reflex saves to master and giving us the critical result on a regular success instead. Vigilant senses to increase our perception to master. Weapon specialization gives us an additional flat 2 damage with our fork attack since we're now expert proficiency. We'll pick up master thievery proficiency and take the quick unlock feat, meaning we can now pick a lock in 1 action instead of 2. Hopefully you got some practice in opening those security doors. The toughness feat gives a bit more natural resiliency, giving us an amount of additional max HP equal to our level and reducing the DC of our dying checks from 9 plus our dying condition value. At level 8, we'll increase our acrobatics proficiency to master. Opportune backstab comes in handy once we locate the other imposter. If we're in melee range of an enemy who is hit by a strike from one of our allies, as a reaction, we can make a strike against that creature as well. The Confabulator feat helps keep us from getting sussed out even when we get caught in a lie. Normally targets of our diversions and lies gain a +4 bonus to subsequent attempts we make, but now that bonus is reduced to +2 and eventually we'll get rid of it altogether. Level 9 rogues gain debilitating strikes. When we hit a flat-footed creature and deal damage, we can choose to give them a -10 foot penalty to their move speed or give them enfeebled 1. We also have great fortitude, increasing our fortitude saves to expert. We use our skill increase for master deception proficiency. Ever wonder why turning out the lights doesn't affect imposter vision? Of course not, it's just a game mechanic. Hag's Sight gives us dark vision from our changeling ancestry. Doublespeak is another feat to help when we have more than one imposter. We can say one thing while conveying a separate meaning that only our allies will understand, unless the crewmates pass a perception check against our deception DC, that is. At level 10, we'll pick up expert stealth proficiency and training in society. Honestly, choose whatever training you want. Rogues that up intelligence basically get everything eventually anyway. Rogues don't usually get Angel of Death, however. Now our strikes against targets we have marked for death have the death trait, meaning if the strike would bring the target to HP 0 or less, they instantly die instead of simply being knocked down or unconscious. Shadow Mark helps us stalk the unsuspecting crewmates in the ship's corridors. When we attempt to avoid notice using stealth to follow a specific target, they now take a -3 penalty to their perception DC. And if we start an encounter during this, which we most likely will since we're stalking to kill, the target takes this penalty to their initiative roll and to their perception DC to notice us. For ability scores, we'll increase dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Now that we're halfway through the build, I just want to give a quick shout out to my patrons, especially those in my alpha tester tier, Michelle Wilson and Decaffeinate. Pretty much everyone here has either a dedicated video already on the channel or has one in the works coming soon. Patrons will always get preferential treatment on suggested builds, but since the channel is still small, pretty much any new patron can request a build directly. So if that interests you, come join the team while we're still growing and get your favorite character on the channel. Now, back to the video. Level 11 rogues get rogue expertise, increasing our rogue DC to expert, and we gain another sneak attack die. We'll take our skill increase in our diplomacy skill. Slippery Secrets lets us resist magical effects to read our mind by passing a deception check against the spell's DC. If we pass, we don't get sussed. Sometimes lying just isn't enough to convince crewmates we're performing our tasks. Improvised Repair allows us to quickly make an item functional again as a shoddy item without actually restoring hit points to the object, meaning it can easily be broken again. Level 12 will take our skill increase for Expert Athletics for better movement. Wary Disarmament gives us a +2 circumstance bonus to AC or a saving throw against a device or trap if an effect would be triggered while attempting to disarm it. Assassinate is our new favorite toy. As long as we've marked a target for death and we are unnoticed by them, we can spend 2 actions to make a strike against them and deal an additional 6d6 precision damage on top of our normal weapon damage and sneak attack damage, since the target will always be flat-footed if we're using this. But it doesn't end there, they also need to pass a Fortitude save against our class DC, and if they critically fail, they die immediately, assuming they actually survive the huge damage steroid this gives, that is. Level 13 rogues gain Master Tricks, which increases our simple weapon mastery to Expert. We'll get Light Armor Expertise to increase our Light Armor and Unarmored Proficiency to Expert, Incredible Senses, which increases our Perception to Legendary, and Improved Evasion, increasing our Reflex saves to Legendary. Gives us the failure result on a critical failure, and any damaging effect we will roll a Reflex save to avoid only deals half damage. We'll increase our Athletics Proficiency to Master and take the Quick Climber feat for 5 additional feet on climbing on successes and 10 more on critical successes. We'll take Hag Magic to choose a spell from a predetermined list to cast as a 4th level Occult Innate spell once per day. Charm forces a will save on a target, and failing, they become friendly to us, and if they were already friendly, they become helpful. Either way, they can no longer make hostile actions towards us, and since we're heightening this to 4th level, this lasts until the next time we make our daily preparations. I will probably consider voting you out of the airlock to be a hostile action if I run in the game, just saying. At level 14, we'll use our skill increase for Expert Medicine and grab the Quick Swim feat. Not a lot of water in the game, but if you come across some, you'll be able to swim 5 feet further on successful checks and 10 feet further on crits. Bloody Debilitations adds another object we can select when we use Debilitating Strike. Now we can have the target take 3d6 persistent bleeding damage in the event they actually survive our assassinate. Level 15 rogues gain double debilitations, allowing us to apply 2 debilitations on strikes against flat-footed enemies instead of 1. We also get greater weapon specialization, allowing our strikes to deal an additional 6 damage instead of 3. We'll take our skill increase for Legendary Thievery and pick up Incredible Initiative for a +2 circumstance bonus on our initiative rolls. Sometimes it's best to downplay your actions and push for a skipped vote at a meeting. No cause for alarm allows us to attempt a diplomacy check and compare it to the will DC of creatures within 10 feet. For each creature we succeed on, we reduce their frightened condition value by 1. For ability scores, we'll increase Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, and Charisma. At level 16, we're getting Swift by becoming Legendary in Acrobatics. Swift Sneak allows us to move at our full speed while sneaking, and we can also use Swift Sneak while climbing or swimming, provided we have the corresponding move type, which we will soon. You're not just good at physical gymnastics, you can also perform mental gymnastics. Cognitive Loophole allows you to ignore a mental effect that we are currently failing but not critically failing against as a reaction. Those halflings may look cute, but they aren't completely defenseless. Level 17 rogues gain Slippery Minds to increase our will saves to Master. We also gain our 4th sneak attack die and a skill increase that we'll use for Legendary Stealth. Shadow Stealth allows us to become invisible after a successful stealth check to hide or sneak. The invisibility ends after either 1 minute or until we make a hostile action. Lengthy Diversion allows us to remain hidden even after we critically succeed after creating a diversion. At level 18, we'll pick up Legendary Athletics so we can now swim, climb, and squeeze at our full speed. Legendary Sneak allows us to hide or sneak even without cover or concealment. We are also always avoiding notice unless we choose not to. Implausible Infiltration lets us forego the vents entirely to basically go anywhere we want to, allowing us to move through walls and even ceilings we are adjacent to, provided they aren't over 10 feet thick or made of metal. Oof. Well, there's nothing saying your Among Us custom scenario takes place on a metal ship. Level 19 rogues gain Master Strike. When we strike a creature that isn't flat-footed and deal damage, the target takes a Fortitude save against our class DC, and they become immune to further Master Strikes for 1 day. If they critically succeed, they are unaffected. On a success, they are enfeebled 2 until the end of our next turn. On a fail, they are paralyzed for 4 rounds, and on a critical fail, they are paralyzed for 4 rounds, knocked unconscious for 2 rounds, or killed outright. Our choice. We also increase our proficiency for Light Armor and Unarmored Defense to Master. We'll use our skill increase for Legendary Perception and take True Perception to gain the constant effects of 6th level True Seeing using our Perception modifier for any counteract checks. We're almost done with our build, and we haven't discussed what exactly happens when we get down to the final crewmate. Reveal Machinations allows us to reveal our true nature to the final crewmate, and that it was us who killed the rest of the crew, either through clever manipulation or straight up brutality. In a successful deception check, the target will gain the frightened condition, and we also gain the effects of a recall knowledge check against them as well. We can't really use this on the same target multiple times unless we wait a day and disguise ourselves as a different person, but let's be honest here, that crewmate isn't making it another day now, are they? At level 20, we'll use our final skill increase for Legendary Diplomacy and take Legendary Negotiation. Now we control the emergency meetings. By spending 3 actions and taking a -5 to our Diplomacy, we can force a creature to end hostilities and come to the negotiation table. If we made a good case to our GM and pass our check, we might even be able to get a successful request out of the deal as well. Nothing quite like calling meetings after getting caught in the act and then convincing the crewmates to vote the witness off the ship. Gotta love democracy. For our capstone feat, we'll take Enduring Debilitation, so our debilitations last for a full minute rather than until the end of our turn. Now with this build, most of the time our debilitations are going to last for the rest of the target's life anyway, but in case one of these crewmates happens to be a barbarian or something, we're going to want to make that meathead bleed out for as long as possible while we make our escape and come back to attack him again. Now that we're level 20, if you're still here, why not give the video a like while I go over the pros and cons of the build. For pros, the ship is our ultimate domain. Between our variety of stealth abilities and move types, we can be everywhere at once, and only those pesky scrying devices will be able to see what we're up to. But if we get caught in the act, we might just have the charisma checks not to get immediately sussed out the airlock anyway. Our tongue isn't the only thing forked. Our literal fork has some of the most punchy power I've ever tried putting into a weapon. Sneak attack, backstab, deadly dice, assassinate, persistent bleeding, and the old standby of just attacking a second time is even an option thanks to Agile. You're going to be rolling more dice than a wargamer whenever you try to seal the deal. For cons, you're going to have to rely on your silver tongue to vote that barbarian off the ship because killing him quickly is going to be nearly impossible if they've got the constitution to pass all your fortitude saves, that is. We're not really made for a long fight. With just a hazmat suit protecting us, we're unarmored for all intents and purposes, and we've got no way to heal up any damage we might take along the way. This was a really interesting thought exercise. I might try to throw together some kind of adventure for 1 or 2 PCs as imposters and have the GM control the ship and the crewmates. I haven't made much homebrew material for 2E, and this might be just the thing that motivates me to do it. Thanks for tuning in to this build. We've got a viewer request poll up on the Patreon right now, so if you've made a suggestion on the channel, you might find your character as an option there this week. If you haven't yet, why not subscribe? We post a new build every week, and if you want to support the channel directly, but Patreon is not your thing, we also sell character sheets on the Gumroad as a reward for a one-time donation. Links are in the description.